For the first 3 decades of my life, I was emotionally constipated. I was afraid to stand out and I was afraid to speak up. You don't show emotion. Crying is weak. You don't be vulnerable. That's weak. I was an expert at compartmentalization and repressing and stuffing everything down. But just like a pipe is inevitably going to burst when the pressure hits a certain threshold, I burst.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. As you know, the whole reason I do this show, kind of lonely. I don't really have many friends, and I've learned to get friends this way on the show. And a lot of these conversations turn into collaborations, partnerships, friendships. You never know. And the reason I do this, being an airline pilot, flying all over the world for the last 29 years, I have really learned the value of never knowing who's walking in front of you, whether I'm in a coffee shop in Santiago, Chile, or sushi in Tokyo, or, Miami, doesn't matter. Every day, every single day, there is people that walk around us, and that person has a past, they have a current, and like all of us, they have a future that they don't know what is going to happen the next second of their life, let alone the next day. But we never actually take the time to talk to that person and go, dude, what's your story? What's your deal? And you would be amazed if you ever do that, like I do. Now, I may be the weird guy, but I think it's always interesting to have conversations and go, man, that guy had a cool fucking story. I like that story. Interesting. Would have never have guessed it looking at him. I know myself, big guy, tattoos. No one would ever think that I've been an international airline pilot flying a Boeing 777 for 29 years. Until you actually ask me, what's your deal? So today I have Paul Salter on from all the way from Tampa, Florida. Paul, first of all, thank you for being on, my friend.
Steve, it's a pleasure. And I just love the vibe and energy already. This is going to be fun.
Awesome. Good. So give us the 10,000 foot, no pun intended, flyover view of, who you are, what you do. Obviously, we already know you're in Florida. Just give me the quick background of you.
Yeah. So the quick, what I do is I'm a high performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach.
I love that.
I help top performers, entrepreneurs, and professional athletes get unstuck out of their own way and achieve their potential. And the reason I do what I do is because I have made countless mistakes, encountered countless so-called failures, or dare I say, learning lessons over the years that led me down a path of pursuing mindset and performance coaching, hypnosis, hypnotherapy that dramatically changed my life. And I'll go there, I'll tell the story. So imagine this, 16 years old, scrappy, gritty, competitive, multi-sport athlete, but I'm 5'3" and 110 pounds. All of my peers are bigger, stronger, faster. All the girls are still taller than me, and I'm just desperately trying to keep up. And mom fed us great meals. I learned how to put the right foods in my body. Checked that box. Fell in love with the weight room because I realized I could control how often I showed up there. Checked that box. But when I grew up, this was when Michael Jordan was coming into his prime. Later, Tiger Woods, Kobe Bryant, Roger Federer. These were kind of my athletic idols over the years. And it just always baffled me, Steve. Why are they so much better than everybody else, despite more or less spending the same amount of hours time in the gym training? What makes them tick? What is that separation factor? And I didn't know it at the time, but what I later learned was I started reading anything I could get my hands on under that umbrella of performance psychology, behavior change, understanding how this thing between our ears actually works. And that planted a seed of just performance. What could I do to be the best me in the gym, on the court, on the field, and later in life and entrepreneurship? And it led me down an interesting path. So my goal, I'm a big football fan, and knowing you're from Texas, I hope you're not a Dallas Cowboys fan. I won't hold it against you. Big Redskins fan. And I had my sights set on, I wanted to be the first sports dietitian ever for the Washington Redskins. Today, that sounds kind of silly because every team has multiple sports dietitians. Back then, across all professional sports and collegiate sports, there were 7 sports dietitians. Nutrition wasn't what it was back then. So that was my goal. And I landed a job at a place called IMG Academy, which is a training ground for elite high school, collegiate, professional, and Olympic athletes. And I worked closely with some of the best individuals at their respective sports. And selfishly, Steve, I had a front row seat. Olympic athletes, sprinters, they're in front of me. How do they carry themselves? How do they talk to other people? How do they train? What do they do when they make a mistake? They fail a repetition at practice. So I'm learning, I'm absorbing from them. But what I'm really beginning to understand that paves the way for my journey is that these individuals who are elite at their respective sports, they already knew how to make healthy, nutritious choices, but they still didn't do it at the consistency they needed to get to where they wanted to be. Why not? That's what opened my eyes to the fact that they didn't have a lack of knowledge problem. They had a mindset problem. So I took that awareness and I slowly shifted away from athletics. I spent 10 or really 13 years coaching men and women stuck in the yo-yo dieting cycle, masters at losing weight, horrible at sustaining that weight loss. And that was the pattern of life. And at about 10 years into that journey, here's the curveball you might have been waiting for. I reached a fork in the road. I always had this irrepressible passion for the game of poker. And I always told myself, one day I'm going to do it. I'm going to play professionally. I'm going to go to Vegas for a summer. I'm going to participate in the World Series of Poker. Well, I told myself that for a few years, but at that point in my life, it was now or never. And I chose the now. So I got my coaching business in a very systematized place, and I went all in on playing poker professionally. I hired the coaches. I studied. I did everything I could to outwork my opponents. But about 6 months into that journey, I still felt like I was lighting money on fire, doing everything I could and still just losing money. And I wasn't quite ready to give up and throw in the towel, so I asked for help. This time, a different type of help. I hired a mindset coach. She happened to be a hypnotherapist. In a very short amount of time, I made significantly more money on the poker table than I ever thought I would, played at significantly higher stakes. Far more valuable was the impact she had on me as a person. So much so, it served as a catalyst to walk away from poker, to phase out the nutrition coaching I was still doing, double down on the mindset work I was doing, get my credential as a hypnotherapist. And then perhaps the biggest game changer of all is I surrounded myself with the most experienced and educated hypnotherapists I could find. They became mentors to me. I became a student, a sponge, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. It's a great story.
It's been fun.
Let me ask you a question. When it comes to the belief patterns that you had pre getting trained through hypnosis, what was the belief pattern that you had at that time to be successful that had to change to become the new you?
It's not safe to have next level success, specifically financially. So for me, my dad is one of 8. They all live to this day, within 30 minutes of each other. 4 of them are in the exact same industry, more or less making the same amount of money, doing the exact same thing. And I had a great living. I had a great upbringing. I had all I ever needed and most of what I ever wanted. But there was always an energy of scarcity present. There was always barely enough to get by. And granted, my parents worked their butt off to provide for 4 children. I'm forever grateful. But the pattern I uncovered through the work with my coach was I watched my dad work a pure commission job, sometimes 12, 14 hours a day to provide for his 4 children. Who am I to out-earn him? How dare I do that? So there was this incongruency existing because I'd hear the petty, subtle remarks. They wouldn't say this exactly, but more or less, rich people are jerks. Those people who have so much money, they're full of themselves. They're a-holes. I don't know if I can cuss on your show. But with that said, there was an incongruency. Deep down, I wanted to scale my business to greater heights every single day, but it didn't feel safe because one day during my college application process, I recall for the first time seeing how much my dad made. He's filling out the financial affidavit or the what's it called, a FAFSA form. So the first time I learned how much my dad made. And the craziest part, Steve, is if you add my dad's income for that 1 year to what I estimated my mom made based on her job for 5 years in a row, I never surpassed that amount. I came within plus or minus $10,000 for 5 years in a row, despite watching the number of hours I worked grow from 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 hours a week, and stress and anxiety just skyrocketing.
So I've been trained by some hypnosis people, Marshall Silver. I don't know if you know him, or Dr. Kevin Elko, who's in the sports industry. Good friends of mine to this day. What, and this is something that they've taught me, and this is my question to you. For me to be successful, I had to let go of certain belief patterns that I had, not do more. I had to do less. And I had to change those patterns. Is that similar to you? Did you have to let go of anything to shed the skin to become the new you?
Absolutely. What I really do with my clients, what I experience, is de-hypnotize them. Because we think about it like this, like that state of hypnosis is a fancy word to characterize the brain wave we're primarily producing, theta brain waves. The first 7 years of our life, it's like walking hypnosis. So we're absorbing from our parents, our guardians, our family members, our environment, the social media we consume, all of these thoughts and opinions are getting embedded in our mind as beliefs. So we go through life. A belief is nothing more than a lens through which we see the world, a filter of our decisions and actions. So we wake up one day after one hardship, failure, or mistake after the next, and we realize, like, crap, this is not what the direction I thought my life would go. So when we get curious and we start looking within, we can begin to question these beliefs. Why do I believe this? Why do I think this? And in that process, we learn, like, holy shit, these aren't my beliefs. And that hits the nail on the head for what you described, is we have to start unlearning those patterns of believing, thinking, feeling, and behaving, which ultimately gives us energy. And that energy allows us to build new beliefs and new behaviors that help us become the best version of ourselves.
So obviously you've done a lot of work on yourself, and had to have some probably some deep conversations of, you didn't come from a family of hypnotists or psychologists or anything like that. So, there's some self-learning, obviously, probably some self-discovery, I'm assuming. Take me to the lowest point that maybe you were ready to quit, and maybe willing to go back to the devil that we know, which is the comfort zone, sitting in glass. It's okay because we know it. What did that version of you believe, and what made you not want to quit? What made you keep going?
Yeah, so the moment that comes to mind for me is I was married for 3.5 years, and candidly, in a quite abrupt fashion that I'm still not proud of, but I've learned from and forgiven myself from, is I ended that marriage. Pretty much out of nowhere, no real good reason, as I would say now, but in the moment, of course, it felt like it. And what happened after that is I felt abandoned by my parents, judged. I felt alone, isolated. It was dark. It was lonely. I felt misunderstood. Nobody got me. Nobody heard what I was saying. And candidly, now I can tell you, I was just struggling. I felt lost. I didn't know who I was. For so long, I had just wanted to fit in, belong, that I was starting to outsource some of my own thoughts and beliefs, what I thought I liked or enjoyed doing. At the end of the day, I didn't really like those things, enjoy those things. And as you can imagine, you make those decisions for so long on behalf of somebody else, you start living a life that's created by somebody else. And as I started to experience that incongruency, that friction, I noticed red flags that I wasn't living the life I wanted to live. And by making these decisions, for me, divorce in my family, huge no. You don't do that. I was raised Catholic, absolute hard no. And I just felt isolated. And I just continued to do the work. I took multiple, we'll call them spiritual medicinal trips in the forests of Costa Rica to connect with plant medicine, to really get to discover myself. I took the time to invest in myself through coaching so I could unpack, why did I behave this way? What were the beliefs that were perpetuating these feelings and behaviors? And through that was a process of unlearning and ultimately rebuilding to create the man I am today.
Now, let's just I'm going to take you back to that spot.
Yeah.
And let's say you made that U-turn and you chose not to choose the path that you're on today, and the Paul I'm talking to today doesn't exist. Who would I be talking to? Like, where would you be today?
You wouldn't be talking to me. I'd be playing small. I'd be dimming my light because I was afraid to stand out and I was afraid to speak up. Remember, the predominant pattern that was perpetuated here was a neediness to belong, to fit in, to be liked. And that led to me continuing to make a series of incongruent decisions. So the way I described that breaking point of asking for a divorce was, for the first 3 decades of my life, I was emotionally constipated. My dad was the stereotypical, you don't show emotion. Crying is weak. You don't be vulnerable. That's weak. You don't do that. So I never had emotional intelligence or maturity role modeled for me. I was an expert at compartmentalization and repressing and stuffing everything down. But just like a pipe is inevitably going to burst when the pressure hits a certain threshold, I burst. So we wouldn't have this conversation. You would see somebody's shoulders slumped, a shell of himself, playing small. I was the nice guy.
Now, when you're going through all of this process of you had mentioned earlier, and the only word that came to mind to me was imposter syndrome. As you were coming up and you didn't want to make more than your parents, and am I really this person? If somebody is going through that right now, because there are probably a lot of people, I'm sure, I think money moves faster than it did probably when you and I were younger, the velocity of money.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who has that same belief pattern, that same thing? Maybe they don't want to go through what you went through, but they want, I don't want to say the fast track, but they want to fix it.
Yeah. So that imposter syndrome, we could also kind of sub in there synonymously: fear of success, fear of standing out. It can all be traced back to a core belief of, do you feel you are worthy, deserving, and capable, in this case, of financial success? So we have to get to the root memory or experience as to when you learn you're not worthy, deserving, or capable. So the fast track there on for someone to do this on their own is to get incredibly curious, to have a built-in consistent reflection process through a lens of non-judgmental curiosity. And it starts with, whether it's journaling, meditation, mindfulness, breath work, going inward. Why do I believe this? When I think about next level success, I feel, insert anxious, scared. Okay, why? And you have to go down the rabbit hole of why, to uncover that core moment, memory, or experience in which you learned it wasn't safe to, in this case, earn X amount of money. And through that process, you're creating space, metaphorical space between you and that belief, that moment, that part of you, which in and of itself creates an opportunity to let go of some of the tension, anxiety, and fear associated with it. But now it becomes malleable. And you can begin to rewrite your story in a way that serves the individual you wish to become.
Now, you've obviously done a lot of self-development, a lot of work on yourself. When you meet someone like me and you're like, man, that guy's fucked up, he needs some help. Or you're like, is it hard to turn it on and turn it off when you're just hanging out, having a whiskey and a cigar, and go, okay, I'm not going to analyze this person. I'm not going to do that. And how do you handle that on a daily basis? Because it's a power. I have a friend of mine, her name's Janine Driver, right? She's a facial recognition. And I asked her, I said, how do you shut that? Like, how do you go out on a date with someone and not, she's like, it's hard. She's like, it's very hard to do that because you're trained to be that person. I've got to imagine it's the same with you, huh?
I've improved, definitely. And the way that I've reframed it, I think it's something you're really good at, is I've reframed it as curiosity. I just get curious because it shows genuine interest. And if you're curious, you're present. So whether it's on a date or in a conversation, you're building a relationship, I try to frame it through a lens of curiosity. And, just like anybody, there's 50 to 70,000 thoughts that go into my mind every day. Those thoughts definitely come up, and previously they came at a pretty ferocious frequency, but I've learned to just let them go and remain curious. And I think even preceding the curiosity is the intentionality. What do I want to contribute to this conversation? How do I want to show up in this moment? That allows me to pause and make sure I take that coach hat off and leave it at the door.
Now, I think a lot of times when we meet people, right? People that are aspiring to be better, it's the old adage, they're either running away from fear or running towards pleasure, right? Mm-hmm. And is one better than the other? right? Is in your mind when you're talking to someone and you're trying to get them through some challenges, whether it's an athlete or something, is one a better driver or is one a better result? Like, what's your thoughts?
The word that comes up to me is for me is alignment. You've got to be taking action or running towards the best version of you, the action that feels aligned and congruent with who you are. I think every emotion A to Z, whether it be anger, whether it be sadness, whether it be excitement or joy, they're all teachers. There's always a learning lesson attached. And when done so intentionally, if you put anger in the front seat of your car and allow it to make a couple decisions and actions, it can be very powerful. It's got a short, chaotic, intense burst of fuel, but if you leverage it with intentionality and you learn how to control it, again, short period of time, it can absolutely be productive. Now, the problem is so many people let anger hijack the steering wheel of their decisions and actions that it completely takes them on a wrong way detour and they crash and burn. So I think all of it can coexist. The missing piece here, in addition to alignment, is the emotional awareness or emotional intelligence to recognize there's an intimate awareness and connection to, I'm feeling this right now. I don't need to make decisions rooted in how I feel now. I'm making decisions rooted in who I want to become. But emotion is literally energy in motion. And when you understand that, you can harness it to take faster, more efficient, effective action.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my my psychologist 101 course that I'm going to talk about right now, and I probably will screw this up, but I'm going to give you my thoughts.
Okay.
Is, whenever somebody makes a decision, right, it's always first triggered by an emotional reaction. Based on the emotion, we make a decision. What I've seen is many people, especially in business, I don't know about others, but they will make an emotional decision based on they will make a future business decision based on a past emotional experience. Mm-hmm. If they talk to a guy that was bald with a mustache, they're like, I don't like bald guys with mustache because I got ripped off by one. And my thing is like, well, if you had bad Chinese food, you don't ever eat Chinese food again. You just maybe don't eat there, but you're going to eat it again. Do you notice that? Does that translate into people's regular lives, or is that just in business?
That is life. Life is filled with triggers. We are forced every day to navigate an emotional battlefield of landmines. It's not if we are going to be triggered, it's when. And when we're triggered, you're right, we are flooded with energy and emotion. And that emotion, it's like it puts down the lens or the belief through which you're going to navigate the situation. Your subconscious is designed to protect you. So as that lens comes about, you're right. We reach into our memory bank. Bald guy in the past ripped me off. I was bullied by someone with a mustache. So it accesses this archived memory bank, and we have created, as a result of those challenging experiences, these pre-programmed reactions. And the reaction word here is very crucial because they're unconscious automated patterns. So this belief influences your self-talk, your actions, your habits, your results, collectively shaping your identity. Every single one of us has these unconscious programs. I call them destructive mindset programs. The crux of what I do is help individuals shift from unconscious reaction to conscious response. Yes, there's a subtlety in word choice, but the biggest difference here, a moment of pause. Because in that pause, you can choose different, think different, be different to achieve different.
And I want to, in a second, I want to get into what you're doing now, but what are your thoughts on people having clarity, having conviction, having control? What are your thoughts of is there a correlation? And I don't even want to say success. I'm going to say happiness is ambiguous to me, but we'll just use that word happiness. Is there a correlation to that with knowing what you want? You're clear, you have conviction, and you are moving in that direction, and you have alignment, you have belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you notice the people? Is there a pattern with those people? I guess is my question.
Yeah, everybody listening could probably fire off 15 things they don't want. It's easy to focus on what we don't want. It can be challenging to admit to freaking own what it is you want. It can be scary because maybe what you want is so outside of the norm of your upbringing. Most people play small. They limit their success. They dim their light. So the clarity is crucial. And many of you listening might be surprised when I say people who look incredibly successful on paper, they typically have immense clarity, conviction, and then consistent action early in their career, but they might start to lose that clarity because what happens is, you can imagine if you're summiting a mountain, and that mountaintop represents, your highest potential, your best self. And you've taken the first few phases of that summit, you've attacked it with tenacity. And then all of a sudden, a massive storm cloud or a dense fog rolls in, and you can't see your path clearly anymore. That dense fog is the equivalent of emotion. That emotion begins to cloud your judgment, invites in uncertainty and second guessing. So a lot of the work I do is diffusing that emotion, the anxiety, the fear, the anger, the shame, the resentment that is boiled to the surface to cloud that clarity. And once we restore that clarity, we already have the whole library of evidence that tenacity and ambition are there, the work ethic is there, but now the clarity, the direction, the right path ahead of them again allows them to begin moving at that pace again.
I love that. And what are your thoughts on, the your reticular activating system with IMs, affirmations? Marshall Silver, who mentored me, he used to explain to me that, people have this hang up on the word hypnosis, but he's like, Steve, everything we do, he's like, the news is hypnosis. Like everything you do, an ad is hypnosis. It's just getting you to redirect. And I'm not sure the words he used, but basically they're getting you to think what they want you to think. What are your thoughts on when people use the word hypnosis? They're like, oh, you're one of those woo-woo, but it's like, how do you answer that?
Yeah, it's leading with education, because whether it's at high school graduation, the cruise ship, the comedy show, I say hypnosis, people think I'm going to, dangle a pocket watch in front of you, get you to cluck like a chicken. And technically that is a form of hypnosis, but I always lead with, hypnosis is not magic. It's not mind control. It's not brainwashing. As you alluded to, it's a natural state of mind. It's theta brainwave production that, guess what? Every single one of you listening right now has been in a hypnotic state multiple times today. It's the same state of mind you're in the moment you transition from sleeping to waking. You're caught up in a good book, your favorite TV show. You're deeply immersed in the flow state on a project, on the golf course. That's all hypnosis. The big benefit, though, Steve, is when you go there intentionally, first and foremost, every high achiever has that harsh inner critic, that judgmental voice that slows them down, makes them question, pause, oh, I'm not good enough, I suck, I can't do that. Yeah, we quiet all of that noise and negativity. And then two, we connect with your subconscious mind. Your subconscious is responsible for 95% of what you do every day. It's home to your memories, emotions, beliefs, your habits. So when we uncover why you are stuck in these patterns of self-destruction, we can then begin to let go of them. We can begin the unlearning process to take that energy to focus on what it is you need to be doing to get clarity on what you want. And then coming back to the reticular activating system, you continue to focus on what you want every day. You're creating a new filter. That filter now helps you see all of the opportunities ahead of you to bring to fruition what it is you want.
I love that. Tell me today, what do you get up and fight for every day?
Son.
I love
that.
I've got
a 15-month-old son. I'm a single dad. Absolutely love him to pieces. And he is my why. I mean, I love that kid so, so much. And it's about showing him how to live a life where you just relentlessly go after your goals, what makes your heart sing, and being that role model, creating that safe space to just courageously, fearlessly go after what you want in life.
So based on that, with your son, what is the version of success that looks like now compared to how it may have looked 5 years ago?
Oh, that's a great question. Candidly, I might be still trying to find a little clarity around, I have a bit of a interesting situation. I co-parent, I have him 50% of the time, and it's learning how to just make sure he is fully integrated in my life. How can I continue to play big and reach for the stars and bring him along for the ride? So for me, it's ensuring, I have a handful of rituals that allow me to be incredibly intentional and present when I'm with him, so that my becoming my best self process and experience is modeled to him, and he's a part of the journey every step of the way, because you and I both now know he's 15 months old. He is picking up, feeling, absorbing all that I do, the energy, the emotion, the things I say, do, the tonality, and just making sure I am the best version of myself for him, so he knows what's possible.
Love that. So let's talk about what you are doing today. Tell me who you help, what you do. Who is someone that you can honestly, because I look at someone like you as well as others as a helper, a healer, someone who helps people from what, we just met 29 minutes ago. But I feel like I have a pretty basic gauge. Who do you help now? What do you do?
Yeah, so I primarily work with top performing executives, entrepreneurs, and professional athletes who know what to do to get to their next level of success, but are struggling to do it. I help them really begin to dismantle those destructive patterns of thinking, feeling, believing, behaving that keep them stuck 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's the individual who wants to be the best version of themselves, understands they can't do it alone. What they've been doing so far just isn't producing the results they desire. They're vulnerable, courageous, and ready to ask for help to get to where they want to go.
Is there a truth that you wish someone told you back when you were first starting?
Asking for help accelerates results. I was the person who I mentioned earlier, I'd work 60, 70 hours a week. It wasn't safe to ask for help. It was never role modeled for me. I thought it was a sign of weakness to ask for help. And I would have saved a hell of a lot of stress, sleepless nights, and a lot of money had I asked for help sooner.
Do you have any regrets that you're still working through to let go of?
It's funny. I challenge myself to check in on that very question quite often. And I don't think I have any, or I should say, let me rephrase it. I do not have any regrets. I love the man I am today. I love the opportunities that await me. I love the opportunity to have impacted so many people. I think candidly, there's still the process of letting go, lingering, stuck emotion that I kept pent up for 3 decades. And I know that just because I decided I want to let it go, it doesn't happen overnight. It was a process of accumulation of 3 decades. It's going to take a little bit of time. And it's something I actively work on. I have 2 coaches in my corner that I connect with consistently that allow me to continue to move at an accelerated rate.
Do you think people want coaching, or do you think people want solutions?
People want short, quick fix solutions. People need coaching.
Oh, I like that. Well said. Yeah. How do you know if someone is right for you? Because if you can't help them, I'm guessing you're not going to waste your time, their money. I mean, it's futile, right? At some point it will end, and probably will not end good. So how do you know this person is right, or you know what, this is a pass?
Yeah. So 2 things. Number 1 is I'm typically a last resort. Someone is exhausted, many therapeutic options. And, I work with a lot of athletes. So there's a whole branch of like mental game work, especially I work with a lot of golfers. So there's like this whole niche of the mental game of golf. I am not that. I am the mindset work, the deep identity level work. So when someone hears me, they reach out to me when they've listened to me enough that what I'm sharing resonates with them. So that's why we're face to face in the first place. But then 2, what I always do on what I call coaching discovery calls is I give a taste of the experience. We go into hypnosis. I solve whatever their most pressing problem is on that call, because I want to make sure it's truly the language that we speak together and that they feel the tangible benefit. I can talk about the benefit all day, big deal. I want them to feel it. But in that process too, I'm simultaneously interviewing them. I have long coaching commitments. I want to make sure that there is a mutual respect and level of commitment that goes both ways.
How do you make sure that you get the results that, there's the results they think they need, and there's the results that you're saying, that's not your problem. How do you clarify that to be congruent?
Compassionate candor.
Okay.
You're right. Because I'll get very clear on day 1. Like, what do you want? Why are we here? What does success look like, feel like? How do we know when we get there? And we put all of these metrics, we put a lot of quantitative metrics in there, but sometimes they're qualitative. They are more subjective, and we have to be aware of how to know that we're moving in the right direction. So there's consistent communication every step of the way. But they'll tell me, I want to achieve A, B, and C. I think this is the priority. I'm like, that's great. Well, here's the actual priority based on doing this for nearly 17 years. But it's education. It's empowering them to make these decisions, to play a role in the goal setting in the process, and also sharing, hey, like, I understand what you mean. So they're heard, they're seen. Here, consider this piece of information too, because it's actually more interconnected to the pain point you're telling me you're experiencing. If we uncover or unblock this first, you get a massive positive ripple effect into those areas you thought were big issues as well.
Love that. What's next on your horizon? Give me a 5-year look forward.
Yeah, so this year is the year of writing. I just released a book that funny enough, I wrote it 3 years ago, finished about 95% of it, didn't know what to do with it, kind of walked away from it. My current coach said, you have an open loop that you continue to think about. Go close that son of a bitch and get it done. So that's called the Sustainable Weight Loss Code, 61 Laws to Lose the Weight and Keep It Off for Good. But I'm writing another book called Hypnotic Golf that really just embodies my approach and invites in hypnosis in a more user-friendly, palatable way to help accelerate progress. But beyond that, it's fatherhood, man. It is just bringing my son along for the ride, to the speaking engagements, to the golf course, and just continuing to show him how wonderful this life is.
That is awesome. That is great, man. Any questions for me before we go?
I just thank you. Your curiosity, your energy, your conversation facilitation. Kudos to you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. If you were talking to the younger version of you, someone who's stuck, trying to survive, trying to figure out what they should be doing, what would you tell him or her?
Have more fun. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Again, I had the tenacity. I worked all the time. And then winning is fun. There's a quote from Ed Milet that I love that says, winning is more fun than fun is fun. I love that. Yet I was guilty of missing out on a lot of opportunities with friends. And in the moment, it felt like the noble thing to do, the committed entrepreneur working on this business. But success can be a lonely road. And there are relationships I wish I further nurtured or nourished over the years that I didn't. And as I've gotten older and really realized just the difficulty it can be at this stage of life, finding those right, like-minded people, I would tell my younger self, go make more memories, go have more fun, nurture those relationships. The opportunity to work will always be there.
Yeah, I love that. That is great. Well, Paul, it's been great talking to you, man. I love the story. I love your energy. This is something I'm very interested in. I'm following. I don't know if you know who Chase Hughes is. I've been doing a couple stuff, him and Eli Wild, and so I'm very. It's all intriguing, very intriguing to me, and I love it. And again, I before we got on the call, I didn't know what you did, and hopefully it shows the curiosity that I have and other people have once it's explained. I think that's great. If people do want to get a hold of you, they want to talk to you, they want to get your book, how do they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram is where I'm most active, at the Paul Salter. If you've enjoyed some of the stories, the messaging, I have my own podcast. It's called the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. The big spoiler here is actually it's a personal development and peak performance podcast. It's just disguised as a golf mindset podcast. So you don't have to play golf, like golf, know much about golf to find value in it. That's the best place rather to really learn more about me, my approach. And you can learn more about applying for one-on-one coaching in the show notes there, or even in the show notes here if I send that to Steve.
Yeah, love it. Well, Paul, thank you for being on, brother. It was great talking to you. Everybody, on behalf of Paul and myself, want to thank you for watching another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. We're going to be back next week. I'm sure we'll have another amazing guest, maybe not as good as Paul, but close to it. And we will see you guys next week. Talk to you guys later.